Brazil yesterday is part of this broader far right push. And again, 2009 is crucial. The coup in Honduras was the signal that U.S. foreign policy, starting under the Obama administration, was actually going to accelerate its response to rolling back the pink tide progressive governments, which really dominated Latin America from 2000 to 2014. And that is also why, regardless of any specific criticisms, there are many of Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua, we have to see the Trump coup and regime change efforts there as part of this same process. And obviously, there would never be any improvement in anybody's rights, a worsening of the rights situation and oligarchy. Brazil's the prime example of that. In ongoingly, Glenn Greenwald, who is, of course, under threat from Jair Bolsonaro and from the corrupt Justice Minister Sergio Moro, the politically motivated judge who put Lula in jail, they're threatening Glenn Greenwald on a daily basis. There's assassination threats, and there's also political and journalistic threats, including deporting him from the country, illegally investigating his finances, and so on. People, including Jake Tapper and Tucker Carlson, have condemned what the Brazilian government is doing to Glenn. So he is under real threat. Lula, in spite of all of the revelations that the Lava Jato process, and the new revelations are of the lead prosecutor Deltan taking money for speeches to banks and other corporations, which is also completely unethical. In spite of all of these revelations and the absolute transparency of the political process that made Lula a political prisoner and took him off the ballot, even though he was leading Bolsonaro by double digits. And that means if Lula was able to run, he would be president right now. You would not have this aggressive deforestation of the Amazon. You would have the most powerful country in Latin America that could be somewhat of a counterweight to the Trump administration. And you wouldn't have murders of indigenous people. You wouldn't have all of these different things that are first and foremost horrifying for the people of Brazil, but actually have a global impact. Annulling the 2018 election, releasing Lula from prison, has global implications for democracy. And yesterday, even if the courts have still not released this political prisoner, there was a horrifying move that came in the beginning of the day, which was that there was an announcement that Lula was going to move from prisons. Currently, he's in Curitiba in police headquarters in a sort of makeshift prison. He's held in solitary confinement, very repressive conditions, but he is not in what is an incredibly dangerous, open population prisons for a former two-term president. So those are the conditions he's been held in. It was announced yesterday that he was moving to Sao Paulo. And the first reaction was that this was a positive signal because the presentation was that, yes, this regional court judge said, yes, he has a right to be close to his family. But there was immediate concerns because this judge is close to Moro, who, again, the justice minister who's been exposed in his corruption with Lava Jato and who has an extreme, vindictive, horrifying record with Lula, which goes back years, including, of course, making him a political prisoner. Lula's lawyers said, we didn't ask for this transfer, and in fact, we don't want it. We're very worried about it. The Moro wanted to still push it forward, and this basically, I'll quote now briefly from Brazil Wire. Lula's defense team quickly acted to prevent the transfer since the condition of Brazil's penitentiaries is dismal and the transfer would likely put Lula's life in danger. I mean, this really did seem like they were attempting to publicly orchestrate him being killed or significantly harmed. The action sparked a huge mobilization by Lula's supporters in social media to the point that by the day's end, in an equally surprising move, several parties in Congress, including Brazil's equivalent of the Speaker of the House, Rodrigo Maia, a staunch opponent of Lula and a key supporter of Bolsonaro, called on the STF, the country's Supreme Court, to stop the transfer. In a similarly unexpected action by a court known for its continued support for the path leading to Bolsonaro's election, including Lula's illegal removal from the election last year, the STF ruled in a 10-1 vote to annul the decision of Judge Sacri guaranteeing Lula's stay in Curitiba. So now, actually, as dangerous and as horrifying as that was yesterday, some people read this as a very positive signal, because the flagrancy of this move was actually opposed by some very right-wing forces who demanded the Supreme Court stop it. And as the daily, endless revelation of all of the just rot and corruption of Lava Jato, this whole scam process, which has led to the election of a fascist president who is destroying so much of the Earth's biosphere and harming so many in Brazil, that pushback and the Supreme Court finally, even though obviously they should have never put Lula in jail to begin with and so on, they're totally compromised in this, might mean that this is part of a broader pushback and unraveling. But it remains an incredibly dangerous situation. Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna have spoken on this. AOC and Ilhan Omar and others have signed petitions, but way more needs to be done on this from progressive forces in the United States. And another thing, and it's just disgusting that Bernie's the only presidential candidate who's called for the release of Lula, let alone any, the most major mainline politician other than Ro Khanna to speak clearly on this. Look, Tulsi Gabbard, please. She's so progressive, she hasn't said anything about this because she practices, in my view, a form of isolationism, doesn't speak on these things. That's my speculation. The only reason as to why she wouldn't. Elizabeth Warren has no concept of courage and solidarity on these issues. It's the blunt fact. That's why she's been totally silent. And these other candidates, by all appearances, indicate, leading with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a major architect of things like what's happened in Honduras. His record, along with the drug war in Latin America, is despicable and dishonorable. And there's no indication that any of these other candidates, Harris, Buttigieg, would do anything to change and reform that relationship, which is so damaging to them, and in fact is generating these other broader problems. All right, folks.